Many WNBA fans are calling out the referee problem.
The referees literally turned their back.
Caitlin Clark appears to be hunted every game. She deals with physicality that no other player in the league is dealing with. The WNBA not stepping in to protect their cash cow, their only draw, their only star, and this is the end result.
They said she would change everything. A record-breaking phenom from Iowa, Caitlin Clark wasn't just brought into the WNBA to compete, she was brought in to revolutionize it. But just weeks into her rookie season, that dream has turned into a nightmare. The league's most marketable figure now finds herself sidelined with a quad injury, not due to accident, but to a stunning level of unchecked physical abuse on the court.
It's shocking.
Caitlin Clark will be sidelined for at least 2 weeks
with a quad injury.
Footage has emerged how Caitlin Clark got hurt.
He fouls her for the 4th time. It's cheating.
Caitlin Clark is the driving force behind the interest in the Fever and the interest in the WNBA.
Rookie Caitlin Clark was subject to several intentional fouls.
With no consistent whistle, no official accountability, and no protection, Clark has endured the type of treatment that would be considered outrageous for any top-tier player, male or female.
After every single game, WNBA players, fans, coaches are all complaining about the referees, and they have shown that they're not going to change anything because the referees continue to be horrible.
But what makes this story truly explosive is the silence. The absence of response from the league's leadership has fueled a firestorm. Fans, analysts, and even fellow athletes are asking the same question. How did the WNBA allow its brightest star to be hunted in plain sight? Comment Protect CC below to show solidarity with those demanding accountability. Because what happened to Caitlin Clark may not just cost a season, it might cost the league its credibility.
Head coach Stephanie White, she was complaining about her team not getting a whistle, not being respected.
Caitlin Clark entered the WNBA with expectations not seen since the league's inception. Fresh off a college career that shattered records and reshaped women's basketball viewership, she brought a wave of new fans, sponsors, and national attention.
2024 was a year of unprecedented growth in viewership in the WNBA, a substantial amount of which can be attributed to Caitlin Clark, who took the basketball world by storm after an all-time college career.
Who had appeared in 185 consecutive games between her career at Iowa and her time with the Indiana Fever. 139 games with the Iowa Hawkeyes. She never missed one.
Ticket sales surged. Jersey orders exploded. TV ratings soared to levels the league had never reached before. This wasn't just a promising rookie. This was a once-in-a-generation marketing engine. And yet, from the moment she stepped onto a professional court, the welcome was anything but warm.
It's the Caitlin Clark disrespect. And what I mean by that is, you've got somebody who is obviously the most popular player in basketball. You got somebody that I would argue may be a top 5 most popular athlete in the United States of America. All right, you got this athlete in a league that nobody's been watching, never turned a profit, and your system is broken against that team?
The league that marketed her as the future seemed entirely unprepared or unwilling to ensure she was treated like it. Rather than embracing her with the protection typically afforded to franchise players, Clark was thrust into a combative environment, one where physical contact was encouraged, hostility was normalized, and officials appeared to look the other way.
The referees are not listening to them. They're not listening to the coaches. They're not listening to the players. They're not listening to the fans. They're listening to their stakeholders. That's why I keep saying nothing is going to change till the mindset and whoever's running all of this, the stakeholders, governance, whoever these people are.
Instead of being celebrated for revitalizing interest in the game, she became a target for resentment, both from opposing players and from a league still struggling to navigate its identity amid newfound popularity. As the games piled up, so did the hits. Caitlin Clark became the recipient of a level of physicality that seemed uniquely tailored to punish rather than challenge.
If this injury does anything, it should be a wake-up call to the WNBA, the Players Association, the team owners, that just like that, all this fanfare, all this interest, all this newfound attention on the league can disappear overnight.
What began as subtle contact soon escalated into obvious body checks, hard screens, and full-on collisions that left her repeatedly sprawled on the hardwood. These weren't incidental plays or standard rookie roughness. They were targeted, deliberate, and increasingly dangerous. Yet time after time, the referees swallowed the whistle.
This is a WNBA problem, and as more and more eyeballs are watching this league, it becomes growingly an issue. The officiating feels you never have a true grasp on what it's going to be.
Fans watching at home noticed. Analysts dissected the replays in disbelief. Opponents delivered contact that would have drawn instant fouls in any other league against any other star. But for Clark, the calls simply never came. The few times she approached the officials for explanations, her concerns were met with indifference, or worse, stone-cold silence. Meanwhile, every shove, elbow, and trip piled onto her stat sheet not as fouls committed against her, but as moments she was expected to power through. It stopped looking like tough defense. It started looking like a pattern of neglect sanctioned by silence from the very top.
She will be out for 2 weeks minimum following a quad strain.
Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham going to the officials and trying to, ask for an explanation of what had just occurred. That official completely stonewalled them.
The deeper the scrutiny, the more unsettling the truth became. A wave of reports and first-hand accounts began painting a picture of officiating not rooted in expertise, but in inexperience. A shocking number of referees assigned to WNBA games were pulled straight from high school leagues, skipping essential development tiers like the NCAA and G League.
Referees just exposed their hand so bad, bro. I mean, they just didn't care no more. They didn't care. The world was watching how bad the cause was. They didn't care at all. They was going to get their issue off against the Fever no matter what. And I'm here to tell you, that's exactly what went down, bro. They have an agenda against Caitlin Clark.
Many lack the training to manage the speed, physicality, and pressure of professional play, especially when it involved the most scrutinized rookie in modern sports. But it wasn't just about qualifications. Whispers began surfacing of a shadowy influence guiding how games were called.
There's a committee for stakeholders, coaches, governors, and general managers, and that is saying what style of basketball they want to allow, and the referees are following that law.
Behind the scenes, a committee composed of stakeholders, general managers, and league executives reportedly dictated how physical games should be and which styles of play should be favored. These weren't impartial rules, they were mandates, crafted to shape branding and control narratives rather than enforce fairness.
And that's why I also don't want us to personally attack some of these referees. I think they're doing their job. If they're hiring referees who basically didn't have any experience but high school refereeing jobs, and then they did a stint in the G League, like, these referees actually aren't. I gained and reconfirmed with myself that not much is going to change.
And as those mandates trickled down to the court, Caitlin Clark found herself caught in the middle. Not only were officials underprepared, they were following orders that seemed to encourage rougher play, orders that made the court a battleground, not a stage for skill.
The reason that people are complaining is because they haven't watched the WNBA before, and these are just new fans who don't understand. But there's clearly an issue.
It didn't take a catastrophic moment to recognize the warning signs. The wear was visible. Game after game, Caitlin Clark logged heavy minutes, often pushing past 35 per night, all while enduring relentless physical play with minimal reprieve from the officials.
Caitlin Clark is being roughed up, but the physical wear and tear on Caitlin Clark, I'm not surprised that 2 weeks into the season, she's already got an injury.
Her body showed the toll, shorter jump shots, labored movement, signs of exhaustion masked by adrenaline and professionalism. Then it happened, a left quad strain.
Indiana Fever guard Caitlin Clark has suffered a left quadricep strain and will be out for a minimum of 2 weeks.
Sudden but unsurprising, sidelined her for at least 2 weeks.
Caitlin Clark, somebody who was responsible for 26.5% of all WNBA economic activity last season, including revenue from merchandise, ticket sales, and television.
Caitlin Clark out at least 2 weeks waited, but can the WNBA maintain without her? Can the WNBA pack arenas, draw ratings?
Fans didn't just react with concern, they responded with anger. This wasn't viewed as an accident. It was the inevitable outcome of a season's worth of unchecked aggression. Every uncalled foul, every shrugged-off collision now looked like a precursor to this moment.
It took us halfway through the season. This year, it took us 4 games for Stephanie White to say, I've had enough.
I thought she got fouled. I think it's pretty egregious what's been happening to us the last few games.
Stephanie White, Indiana's head coach, had warned officials repeatedly about the lack of protection. Teammates like Sophie Cunningham tried to confront referees mid-game, only to be met with stone-faced silence.
Y'all see what's happening right here? That is a WNBA referee turning his back to Caitlin Clark and the Fever. Oh, my God. I mean, he literally got his back turned, ignoring Caitlin. I mean, this is bad.
The league's brightest star had been left exposed, and now she was paying the price. And while the headlines reported an injury, the fans recognized something deeper. A preventable failure broadcast live each night, ignored until it left the WNBA's top draw sideline. In the aftermath of Caitlin Clark's injury, one would expect a flood of statements from league executives, a rallying of support, or at the very least, acknowledgement. Instead, what followed was silence, deafening, deliberate, and damaging. No official response. No investigation into officiating patterns. No apology. Nothing.
I thought she got fouled. I think it's pretty egregious what's been happening to us the last few games. And I might be able to understand it if we were just chucking threes. And the disrespect right now for our team has been pretty unbelievable. So it's disappointing.
For a player responsible for a historic surge in attendance, revenue, and viewership, the league's absence of comment wasn't just puzzling, it was alarming. That void raised a question that echoed louder than any press release ever could. Was this silence strategic? Even Clark's own teammates appear to hint at the issue. Kelsey Mitchell, in a quiet post-game moment, encouraged her to listen to her body, an indirect nod to the abuse Clark had absorbed over the opening stretch.
But Kelsey Mitchell said even if there is a injury, hopefully it's just, like a little nagging thing. And again,
take care of your body and just make sure you I think recovery is everything. I think if you're in tune to your body, you know what you need. This is Caitlin.
The message was clear. Everyone saw what was happening, but no one with power was willing to stop it. For fans, that silence became symbolic. A league so desperate to maintain control, it refused to stand by the very athlete holding it afloat.
The only draw in your league, the only player capable of selling tickets, is potentially out for an extended period of time. What the hell are you gonna do now?
The outrage wasn't just about missed calls anymore. It was about what the league chose not to say and what that silence revealed. Referees weren't simply inconsistent. They were part of a fractured system shaped by conflicting interests and hidden influence. A competition committee consisting of coaches, team governors, and league stakeholders reportedly directs referees on how physical games should be. These aren't neutral guidelines. They're marching orders from individuals with personal and financial investments in game outcomes.
In that situation. And I understand the frustration that I think comes the most with officiating is the inconsistencies of officiating. But listen, this is not unique to the WNBA.
Rather than empowering officials to act independently, the league appears to have prioritized brand alignment over fairness. For Caitlin Clark, that meant playing in a league where rules shifted depending on what best suited the league's broader narrative. Her dynamic, high-tempo play clashed with the more physical, grinded-out style some within the committee seemed to favor. As a result, she faced more hits, fewer whistles, and zero consistency.
There's clearly a problem. If it's not just one team, also, by the way, it's not just the Indiana Fever. I know it's been the biggest story this week. Brittany Griner left a sideline interview to go yell at the refs.
One of the most blatant examples came during a late-game drive against the New York Liberty. Clark was clearly fouled by Natasha Cloud. Replays confirmed it, commentators called out, and fans erupted online.
But at the same time, the Fever were on the wrong end of some whistles, it seemed, in this game. And it's seemingly been that way for much of the season. And it's been a recurring theme where there's a level of physicality allowed against them, and they're not allowed to reciprocate on the other end. That particularly, of course, goes for Caitlin Clark.
But the referees didn't blow the whistle. And thanks to a technicality requiring a full timeout to challenge, Indiana couldn't contest the call.
All right, when that foul took place, CBS said she's got a challenge left. Well, it didn't matter. She couldn't use it. Stephanie White could not challenge that foul call on Lexi Hull, the one that led to the game-winning free throws from Sabrina Ionescu, because she didn't have a timeout. You need a full timeout, not a reset timeout, to initiate the challenge. Now, my issue with that is it would have been nice if the CBS announcers hadn't even brought up the challenge.
The structure protected the referees. Caitlin Clark wasn't given the same courtesy. The tension that had been simmering beneath the surface finally broke. Coaches and players across the WNBA began speaking out, not in vague frustrations, but in clear, unfiltered criticism of the officiating. Stephanie White, head coach of the Indiana Fever, had reached her breaking point. In a post-game interview, she described the treatment of her team, especially Caitlin Clark, as egregious, pointing to a disturbing trend of missed calls and dismissive officiating. Her words weren't isolated. During a nationally televised halftime segment, Brittany Griner, abruptly stepped away from an interview to yell at the officials, visibly agitated by what she saw unfolding on the court. These weren't isolated moments of passion. They were calculated responses to a pattern too blatant to ignore. Other coaches began echoing the sentiment, citing a dangerous level of physicality being allowed without consequence. Even opponents started recognizing that what Clark was facing wasn't standard rookie treatment. It wasn't just that the whistles were late or inconsistent, it was that they often never came at all. The league had a problem, and those inside the game were no longer willing to stay silent. But whether the league was willing to listen remained painfully unclear. The consequences of inaction are now crashing down on the WNBA like a tidal wave. Caitlin Clark's injury didn't just remove the league's most bankable star from the court. It ignited a storm of legal threats, media investigations, and fan-led campaigns demanding accountability. Clips of ignored fouls and brutal hits have gone viral across social platforms, drawing outrage not just from basketball fans, but from political figures, celebrities, and sports analysts nationwide. The conversation has evolved from isolated frustration to systemic condemnation. Whispers of potential lawsuits have begun to surface, with many questioning whether the league's negligence amounts to a breach of duty toward its players. Financially, the risks are enormous. Clark was responsible for driving a significant portion of the league's 2024 revenue spike through tickets, broadcast deals, and merchandise sales. Without her, questions are growing about whether the WNBA can sustain the momentum it worked so hard to build. And looming over everything is one unspoken truth. If the league allowed this to happen to the very player it marketed as its savior, what does that say about its ability or willingness to protect anyone else? The clock is ticking, and silence is no longer an option. Caitlin Clark didn't ask to carry the weight of an entire league, but her rival demanded a reckoning the WNBA can no longer delay. She brought sold-out arenas, record-breaking TV ratings, and a tidal wave of fan engagement not seen in decades. But instead of being uplifted, she was left to fend for herself, shouldering bruises, silence, and the indifference of a broken system. Her injury may have removed her from the floor temporarily, but placed the league under a magnifying glass permanently. The officiating inconsistencies, the questionable governance, and the refusal to intervene now define more than just one season. They define the league's credibility moving forward. Every ignored foul, every viral clip, and every unanswered plea has become a symbol of an institution at war with its own future. Whether the WNBA chooses to evolve or double down is the question fans, players, and media are all asking now. But one thing is certain, this story isn't fading quietly. The truth is out, and the world is watching. Comment Protect CC if it's time for the WNBA to fix this mess. Subscribe for more breakdowns on the biggest stories in women's basketball.